since we're going impromptu here a little bit, let's talk about the match, the Tiger versus Phil, and that whole thing.
Debacle.
Was it a debacle?
Well, that's a good point. You know, I had to stop myself.
Mark Levy doesn't think it was a debacle.
From what? From
Bleacher Report.
Yeah.
I don't think it was I think in terms of what they were able to do. Well, we'll get back to that. Where do we want to start today?
So let's talk.
You're the chairman of this.
I'm driving the bus.
You're driving the bus.
All right. So let's get into the new segment of Sports Dream Job and featuring a bunch of folks like what's our imaginary sports dream jobs would be, and those people that have them.
Sports dream job of the week. So what's happening out there now in terms of I think people who are living their sports dream job.
Right.
And I'll start. I'm going to nominate Mark Corian.
Yep.
He is the head soccer coach of women's soccer at my alma mater, Florida State University.
All right.
And for the second time this past week, he led the Lady Noles to a national championship in the NCAA Soccer Cup.
Yeah.
They defeated North Carolina, ACC conference rival North Carolina,
Mia Hamm,
who won in a very dramatic in the other semifinal against Georgetown. But Florida State 1-0.
Yeah.
I guess is the proper terminology. So kudos to Mark Corian, who is doing highly successful at my alma mater, which I couldn't be prouder of, and it's a great day for women's athletics. Now that's for those of you who are counting, that's 2 women's national championships for Florida State.
Yes.
In the last in this calendar year. Softball and soccer will take them all, my friend. We'll take them all.
So it's just very interesting that you bring up women's soccer for a national championship, but bring up coach as this is his dream job or a dream job out there.
Right.
Right. Which it is.
Yeah.
You know, women's soccer obviously, and just soccer in general, especially on the college level, it's a niche sport.
Right.
Right. It's
Absolutely.
not a very highly visible sport. I only knew that University of Bridgeport won the Division II title, so I just saw that the other day. So I'm like, they finished the season already. But someone like Coach, who's coaching at that high level, I don't care what level you're at, winning a national championship or a world championship anywhere you go, from 12 years up Little League all the way up through college, is a huge accomplishment, right? It's a huge,
absolutely
huge accomplishment. But when I think when I think of a dream job and like the one he has, there's very few of those head coaching positions in college, especially in women's sport. Not just women's sport, men's sport as well. There's not a lot of people that have those jobs. You know?
Yeah, and I think too, even in the case of Florida State, you're talking about even convincing the institution to have women's soccer in a state where it's pretty big, and especially in the Tampa, that I-4 corridor.
Right.
Soccer's a pretty big deal, and obviously in South Florida as well.
Right.
But to convince a school that is pretty far removed from that.
I think Title IX convinces the school.
Well, I do. That's true, but there's a lot of things I think that convince them, but
put the resources
the resources together to develop a winning program in light of a lot of other, like a lot of premier programs are in their conference. So I think to leverage that to create to be competitive in that space is tremendous.
Yeah, but if you look,
and he's got to feel great about it. I think that everyone who works in that athletic department ought to feel great about in terms of I think what they've done.
Yeah.
And
they get a higher ranking in Learfield Cup. Those points obviously make up for the lack of wins that the football team had at Florida.
Settle down.
I'm just bringing up facts.
Wow.
I mean,
wow.
But no,
I want to take some shots now.
No. I want to bring up another point though. It'd be very interesting to see the roster of where these women came from, parts of the country, because I would assume the majority of them did not come from Florida, the state of Florida. But you look at North Carolina women's soccer, which is a dynasty, right? Anybody that follows sports, so Mia Hamm came through there. She's probably one of the bigger alumni that I know off the top of my head that went through there just from paying attention, I guess. But most of those women did not come from North Carolina.
Correct.
right? You know, you have. I would say I would be safe to say that if you look at that roster, you're going to find kids from a lot of kids from upstate New York, from Rochester, in that area, in Pennsylvania, Philadelphia area, where there's definitely a hotbed of female soccer players.
Right.
And who does it
internationally?
Internationally,
I know in Florida State's case, I know there were some Australian women from Australia, and yes.
You know, the interesting thing about that too is because the thing that's I think appealing for a lot of colleges, especially with international players and those international quote unquote sports, is that you're going to get an older kid because the NCAA clock hasn't started ticking for that.
Correct.
So some of them have already been through college. It's true.
Right.
So they may be on getting their masters. I mean, they got their degrees. But
right.
A lot of those kids coming in are 21, 22 years old.
Yeah. So it's
Let's pull up the roster.
Let's
pull up the roster. I see all these Australians.
We probably yes. So I know I do know this, but it is again. I just think in terms of across the board in terms of it's not just the coach. I think in terms of that creates a dream job in terms of part. Coaching is part of it, but think about all the people who are working in the athletic department, who are part of communications, who are working PR for that group, who
the trainers,
exactly.
Strength and conditioning coaches.
Absolutely,
they play a huge part.
Absolutely, and so all again, there are so many dream jobs that are connected to that one moment. Yeah. But kudos to Coach Krikorian and all my fellow Seminoles, and congratulations. That's right, my friend. So yes, we're ready to talk about basketball.
Yeah.
Forget the football season. We're over it. We're not going to go to the bowl game for the first time in 36 years.
All right. That doesn't hurt.
That will make. It's okay. I'll take 36 out of the last 37 years we've been in bowl games. I'm okay with that.
There you go.
I'm okay with that. We're allowed to skip a year.
There you go. Right? Just like every other Florida State fan I know. Does the coach?
Wow.
What does the coach do? Is he staying? Is he going? They're getting rid of him. They're gonna be patient.
I think it is immensely unfair to let him go. Yeah. In my own opinion, I think. Look, they only have one less win than they had a year ago.
Yeah.
So this is a problem. The things are there and have been there. So he's inherited a lot of stuff. I think he got that job late in the recruiting cycle. Mm-hmm. So he made the choice, and it was his choice, to run a different offense. And so I think he deserves at least a chance to have at least two classes of kids and get through the end of next season. Then, again, I would still say we're in an instant gratification world, a swipe right world, and I think he deserves it. I think he deserves to stay. I think he's going to survive, but he is definitely on notice for sure.
It all depends on the culture. Not every national championship team doesn't always have the best players either. They have the best chemistry. I mean, granted, you need great players, but you don't always have the best. You may have the best team,
right?
And the culture. It's just amazing when you look at what coaches can do for a program. Either from the upside or bring the program down. I mean, you look at a guy like Peterson who went from Boise State out to Washington. Look what he's done.
Right.
Nick Saban obviously is the obvious one who won it at LSU. Has been successful wherever he's been. For whatever reason, these guys had the magic bullet. I mean,
we'll look at Peterson. Let's take that for a second because let's look at his first year at Washington. Yeah. How'd it go? Not well. It took some time.
But he was successful at another place, though.
Correct.
Yeah, very successful at Boise State.
But so has Willie Taggart's been successful at Western Kentucky. He was successful at South Florida. He had a good first year. He was only at Oregon a year.
Right.
And it's not like they were ready to run him out of town. They weren't trying to run him out. He landed his dream job.
Yeah.
In Tallahassee at Florida State, where he grew up.
He grew up there.
He grew up there. Yeah.
So that's home.
He did not go to school. Yeah. So this is home. So I don't.
So you guys gonna have some patience with him.
Well, I listen. I have other fellow alumni who are ready to dismiss him.
Yeah.
Already. They've seen enough, and this is the worst team they can ever remember. I said, well, there's some pretty good years in the last 36 to take a look at that make you feel pretty good. That's a pretty high bar, and I just think in this era of college sports and college football in particular, I think it's very difficult to inherit. At the end of the day, they're still 18 to 21-year-old kids,
Mm-hmm.
and to come into that situation late
Mm-hmm.
in the cycle, I think it's inherently unfair to give someone 1 year. And I challenged them. One, I said, who else would you hire? The answers aren't worth repeating because there was no one good. And then two, in terms of name somebody else who was only given a year to impact change in terms of where they were.
Unless
They gave Nick Saban more. Nick Saban had more than a year. His first 3 or 4 at Alabama were not.
You got to change your culture. You have to build relationships, and you have to build relationships with the enrollment office.
Mm-hmm.
You have to build relationships across campus with housing,
Yep.
with the deans. You have to build such deep relationships throughout your campus to be successful. So you cannot just close your door in your football office or your soccer office and just only door you want to walk into is a high school recruit's parents' house.
Right.
You got to be able to build the foundation on your campus first.
Yeah.
And get everybody internally bought into what you're trying to do, and be able to work within that organizational culture first. Build the foundation with the school and the alumni association and the booster club, and then now you go out. So it's internal first, and then you got to spread out from there. And it'd be interesting what Coach would have to say about that too.
Yeah,
but
it would be.
It would be. It would get great to get his perspective on it, but that's just how it works. And Saban, with Florida State too, I agree. I think you got to give the guy time. No one's going to walk into an IBM or Apple in 1 year, or any business that is failing, GMC right now, and turn that thing around quickly. Right? It's a process. You have to get all the stakeholders on the same page, and you have to build relationships one at a time with them. You have to build relationships internally with your staff and the support staff and the trainers. And it's a huge effort, and he's got his hands full. Then you got to get those high school coaches in the state that are going to steer those kids back up to Florida State.
And he's got, he has some stuff there because of his time at South Florida, where he was there for a few years.
And he's a Florida guy, so
and he's from there, so he knows. That's the one part where I feel like he's on the most solid ground.
Yeah.
You have to feel good. I feel good about institutionally, the institution itself. I guess you don't get the job if they're not somewhat comfortable in terms of that part of it.
Of course.
At least the leadership at the institution. What will be interesting to follow is the alumni and the booster organization. And it is a couple things that are distressing, I think, at least from an AD standpoint. There were a lot of people dressed as empty seats at a lot of games, and I can't remember a Florida State game where there were visible empty seats.
So,
and that part that cuts time off of that takes up a lot of slack of the leash you've been given.
Well, I think the biggest thing for him to do right now, and the strategy that he needs to take, is to accept that the fact, don't point fingers, accept the blame. It's my fault. This is what we're going to do to fix this, and this is how we're going to fix this. Don't blame the former coaching staff. Right. Don't say you inherited some bad kids. Right. Take it.
Leave that to people like me.
Leave it to people like you and the other Florida State fans.
Correct. No one else is going to do that. I will do that.
That are ripping the whole program and dying right now. But accept it and build those relationships. I would focus right on that booster club. I would put a good amount of focus on them to make sure that, listen, here's our plan. Here's our strategy. I want you to support me. I know we have a lot of work to do. I'm taking the blame for this first year, and we have a good plan in place to do this. And here's some of the things we're going to do. They're still going to get the 4 or 5, star athletes. They're still going to come. regardless of what happened this past year, just because the kids probably grew up a Florida State fan and they've already made their mind up. But anyway, so interesting, yeah. But from a dream job perspective, to go back to his hometown,
he's got. I mean, he
you know,
he has a dream job as well. Absolutely.
Yeah. So congratulations to the Florida State women's soccer team.
Hey, I'm proud of all. As a father of two daughters, I'm proud of all our programs, and I would love. Hey, listen, I'm ready to be what used to be the Stanford of the East.
Yeah.
I'd love to have balance. I would love to see an athletic program that does well in all sports.
Stanford of the East. Florida
Sure.
State.
Well, I didn't say academically. Athletically. Let's try to. You look at.
Okay. I think that's a little bit of a stretch.
Fell down there.
I think that's a little. I think that's a lot of a stretch.
I can't even claim that we're the Duke of the ACC. I mean, for crying out loud.
Well, there's Vanderbilt. There's a couple of. There's Northwestern. There's a bunch of.
There's somebody.
I don't know if Northwestern will be.
Wow. Well, no, that's good.
So let's change the subject. Let's go over. We know that Bob Mcnair, the legendary owner of the Texas,
Houston, the Texans.
The Texans, and I was going to say Houston Oilers, but the Texans, and he was a huge horse racing guy because he would be up in Saratoga every summer. Yeah, he had a big presence up there. You would see him, his jet would come in and shake and rattle the whole neighborhood, and he would spend quite a bit of time up there when his horses were racing and when they were not. So now that he has passed away, and just like every other, most of pro sports teams, if there's a hierarchy or there's a inheritance passing these teams down to the kids in the second generation, just like the Raiders and just like the Saints, and it's going to happen in Dallas, and then it's now happening with the Texans, and you have the second generation now is going to run the team. Happened out in San Francisco,
in New England.
In New England, it's going to happen in New England. It's going to happen in San Francisco, and just like sometimes car dealerships, when the grandpa and the dad own it, and then the second and third generation get a hold of it, sometimes it's just not the same.
Well, I hope you're not comparing an NFL franchise to a car dealership. I would say the dynamic stakes and the inherent values of
it's a little bit skewed.
Yes.
But you get my point.
Municipalities are not clamoring to have car dealerships move to their town.
Well, it's still business, right? You still run the show.
Yes.
I mean, if you look at, it's not probably a good example, but if you look at the Dallas Cowboys, the Joneses have not, other than building, the Taj Mahal of stadiums, they haven't really been relevant in the NFL in 20 years since the ownership. I think they won the first year they owned the team, but, even not that the Texans have been a powerhouse, they got a good team this year, but what's going to happen, is the son going to be able to run the team and operate it like that?
So, anyway, so my second nominee here for Dream Job of the Week goes to Cal Mcnair, who is the antithesis of your book, sir.
Yeah, that's right. How to land a dream job if your dad doesn't own the team. Well,
correct.
His dad does own the team.
His dad does own the team, and he is now,
So,
rest in peace, Bob Mcnair.
Rest in peace, Bob.
And our sympathies to all the Mcnair family.
Absolutely.
But yes, Cal Mcnair is my other dream job of the week.
Yeah, well, some people in life are just lucky, right? You're born into it. Things happen, and he was born into it. And not to say that he's not qualified enough, and he's obviously in that position. He's not the son from Entourage, who had to go out, in the movie. And he's probably not at that level.
Correct.
Obviously, but I'm sure he's a real quality guy, and who knows what they may do with him. Maybe he's probably that next spark. He might not be a businessman, but maybe he's a football guy. I don't know.
We'll find out, and we wish him the best of luck.
We wish him the best of luck.
The team is on a roll for sure, and having won 9 in a row, I think now. So after 0-3 starts. So.
Right. They're still not going to go far in the playoffs.
Wow. This is your prediction. You're not a believer.
No, it's like that every year.
You're not a believer.
No, I mean, unless everybody gets excited because the Giants kind of came in as a wild card, I don't know what 5-6 years ago. I don't know when they won it, and no one
2000. Well, it was the second time they won in 2008.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And that crazy catch over off the helmet, and they snuck into the playoffs, and they end up running it, and that could happen, right?
It could.
It could happen. To anybody. It's not what you do during the season, really. If you're staying healthy and you're rolling at the end. But yeah, I don't know how do we get talking about this?
Well, we got because his son was the dream job of the week,
yeah.
and he's with the Texans, and now we're on to the.
That is a dream job, by the way.
It is.
Yeah, absolutely.
You'll take it. You'll take it if you can get it, right?
You take it if you can get it, and wish him well.
For the longest time, I remember as a kid thinking that if I won the lottery, I'd buy a sports team.
Yeah.
And that was back when lottery jackpots were enough to actually buy a sports team. Now, those well, that one, yes, that one. It was few and far between.
Yeah.
But now, not going to happen. Those pots aren't big enough. I can buy an MLS team, perhaps.
Yeah.
But it will not get me an NFL franchise for sure.
So what do you think about? Let me switch this over a little bit.
Sure.
What do you think about Seattle being awarded the 36th franchise in NHL?
So yeah, I think they're still working on some of the arena stuff, right? That's not done yet.
No, it was announced today.
Oh, it is to get announced today.
Yeah, they got it.
Not a town I think of in terms of hockey, for sure. I think the basketball roots there, but I know they've done some incredible work in terms of the team, the business people there, and people who are trying to bring a sports franchise in terms of getting people involved in buying tickets,
right,
and creating a database of people who are ready to come forward and buy season tickets. I'm excited for the city. I think the city can support it. I've been to Seattle a few times. I think it's a great sports town, and I just they're probably equally equipped to support hockey as Phoenix, Tampa, or even more so than some of those places. So I think it's an interesting move. I don't know that unlike Vegas, I don't know that it moves the needle in terms of TV. I guess we'll have to see. Maybe we'll see what kind of atmosphere they create for themselves in that arena. Do they make it a hostile place? Is it something that captures the imagination, much like Nashville did a couple of years ago? What Vegas, Tampa, yeah, but still Tampa.
It's a transient market though for them to kind of make that the.
But Tampa did it. Only became prominent when they started winning. Yeah. And when they moved into a new arena from where they were playing before, that changed things for them. Nashville, Vegas for sure. It was just town was hungry for something. There was no other. There's no other professional sports franchise in Vegas, so that made it easy. I think as well. So I think it's a good calculated risk for.
Yep.
And it's I'm happy for the sports fans in Seattle for sure.
So what would you compare Seattle to, as far as a market? And I'm going to ask you the question. I'm going to answer it.
Okay, all right.
So I look at Seattle. I've been there many times as well. I look at Seattle very similar to the sort of a Denver type of vibe.
Okay.
Not that it's a transient town, but Washington to a certain degree, or Seattle to a certain degree is.
Right.
It's a great market. It's a great sports market. They obviously support the MLS.
Mm-hmm. They've done very well with that.
It's not too far from Canada, and so it's a
relatively. It's closer by boat, yes, to get to Canada.
Right.
Yes.
But still, So I don't know. Just.
Well, I think I like your Denver comparison. I think the reality is it's not an inherent. There aren't generations of people who live in Seattle and are following any of those teams.
Yeah.
That are there now or were there in the past.
Yep.
There is, I think, I guess the best way to describe it is there's a lot of other distractions, I think, in terms of what you can do and what's kind of in Seattle for people to get into.
Yeah.
And so how you, I think what's pretty interesting about um, MLS success there and is their kind of blending of, to me, soccer is more global. And so I think there's opportunity as we've uh, we're an immigrant nation, and their ability to tap into that group and even tap into, I think there's some other minor league soccer that has been successful in the Northwest prior.
Mm-hmm.
Portland certainly was a very successful franchise for MLS, and so having them embrace that, I guess, is not that surprising that they're doing well for that piece. But I think you still have to run the right. You still have to run the plays, right? You still have to do all the right things and still run a good business for it to work, right?
Yeah, I just don't know. I don't know if Seattle's big enough of the market, so the bandwidth financially from a sponsorship standpoint is going to be there. Although we have Boeing there, and who else is based out of there?
Starbucks.
Starbucks.
There's
yeah.
a little company called Microsoft.
Microsoft is there.
That's pretty good. So,
yeah.
But you're right. I think
Yeah.
the depth, there isn't the depth there of some. But you know what? No, a lot of places don't have that depth. You know,
Yeah.
I think you have to figure out. I mean, if you had told me, Atlanta and Orlando are two places I've lived,
Yeah.
and if you told me, if you wanted to bet me $1 million that those two franchises would kill it from attendance in their first year out of the blocks in those markets, I would say, do you want to make it $4 million? Because I would say there's just, but what I think in the case of Orlando, which I'm closer to, I can tell you they did a great job of tapping into the youth market and making people feel connected to that team.
Yeah.
And they did it in a world where they came with the promise of a soccer stadium, a soccer-specific facility, but they didn't open with that. And for them to sell out essentially the Citrus Bowl on multiple occasions for their stuff and have these huge crowds who had never, the largest crowds that had been in MLS games, that's, fantastic. And then I really probably underestimated the Atlanta market related to soccer. I'm still blown away when you look at even the history of the Falcons, the Braves. You look at the other four major sports teams in that marketplace, and you even look at when they had hockey, twice failed in terms of NHL franchise there, and then you see what they're doing with the MLS. So somebody within the MLS as an organization has got it down. They've got it figured out in terms of how to do those things.
Yep.
And I think you look at, I think back to Seattle and NHL, I think there are a lot of lessons there for somebody to figure out what they did in Vegas and what they did right in Vegas and try to replicate that in your market in Seattle.
Got it. So that's good talk about the NHL and our predictions, what's going to happen, and from a business standpoint, it's going to be interesting to see. So let's jump over. Let's segue over into the business side with former athletes who are now using the platform that brought them the name and the brand recognition, and their transition over to being entrepreneurs, which some are phenomenal at it, and I think the tools that they have now and the awareness that they have now are better than it's ever been before. So some of these mainstream athletes that came up through the 70s and 80s and 90s obviously did not have the internet. And the ones that are benefiting from the ability to extend their brand beyond their own marketplaces, especially if it wasn't a big market. And love them or hate them, Kobe Bryant has done an amazing job of extending his brand, of maybe not the most likable guy,
right,
but probably extremely respected guy,
right.
But what he's done from taking that and leveraging it into a business and some of his other ventures that he's done, and we're going to talk about the one that he's into now that was just announced, and Mamba's Sports Academy.
Yeah.
So
let's talk about Kobe, because I think Kobe's interesting, and I think you brought up the juxtaposition with other athletes in kind of that previous generation.
Yeah.
And I think you're fair to mention. I think there are a couple things that are different now. That I think are Kobe's. Not only the internet,
right,
and I think in terms of even tools surrounding the internet
right.
that help, that give him an advantage that I don't think those guys had. We can also talk about his lifetime earnings.
Yeah.
Certainly, the NBA since '92 and the Dream Team is a more global sport. He is a global kid. I mean, he grew up in Italy,
Right.
played there, came and played, moved to the U.S. So he is, quite an expert, I think, in terms of negotiating for himself, related in terms of his business relationships. When you look at endorsement deals, in terms of a guy who made something happen with Adidas
Right.
and Nike,
Right.
in the course of his career, I think probably, and being in LA and being in the entertainment business. So if you look at the things that he's done prior to this academy, I know that he has he's involved in this, what is really this educational endeavor in China as well, that's doing very well for him in terms of where he's making fabulous amounts of money in terms of that part of it as well. So he is uniquely suited, I think, in terms of doing this other thing. And that I think what's unique about the academy is, he was kind of a self-taught guy. He kind of did this, created his own persona in terms of who he was going to be, kind of in his own bubble. And I think the unique thing is, as you hear these other stories about, teammates have come out and sometimes said, hey, I love winning with the guy, but being his teammate wasn't always the most pleasant experience. He sort of conditioned himself and made himself this athlete really on his own in a bubble. So him kind of like sharing that experience now in his own academy in terms of being like me, I think it's a brilliant thing. And I'm surprised more guys haven't done that in a way like Cal Ripken. I mean, I see this now being positioned as a way to be what Cal Ripken has been
in the world of youth baseball.
In the world of youth baseball. And when you look at, too, you can look at, and I know people have said this about Jordan, like that he really missed this opportunity to kind of create this. How are there not Michael Jordan academies between him and Nike? How are there not Michael Jordan basketball academies?
Great point.
All this in this place.
I think IMG Academy is definitely the flagship of all these academies, right? So everybody's trying to be the next IMG Academy to a certain degree.
Correct.
Right, and this is no different. Bo Jackson has his own. I don't know, even it's a facility. I think it's up in Chicago somewhere up there. On the east coast of Chicago, comparable to Stanford. But when you look at what he's done, Jordan definitely was about the brand, but he wasn't the guy. I don't know if it was a mistake of his or maybe it wasn't of interest to his. But what I love about this, and Kobe seems to be the type of guy, and I've heard him speak on different panels before, talking about business and branding and digital marketing and leveraging the platform that you have as a pro athlete to take advantage of that next thing in life. And he's certainly the pinnacle of that. And what he's done, it's easy to put your name against something like with Body Armor and getting equity out of a company like all those folks that cashed in with Vitamin Water, right? And they're doing it again with Body Armor. We're trying to do it again, but I mean, they just got bought by Coke. I think bought them out for $1 billion.
Wow.
Something similar to in that range. So there's definitely some guys that benefited from that. But now with Kobe, it's what he's doing in China, like you said, and what he's doing here. He's not just throwing his name on it. He's probably very much involved in doing something that's going to make a major impact on kids' lives, right? And it started, besides stroking, I'm sure, a very large check to fund this thing as a private equity partner,
or gathering, or even if you found other investors. Look, I mean, he lives in a market, quite honestly, that's done very well in the last 25 years. And so I think there are probably a lot of other people who would love to do business with Kobe and want to do business with Kobe.
Right.
And he's won an Oscar, by the way, just so you know.
Yeah. Wow.
And I think this
For
other.
what? Wait a minute. Time out. For what?
Yeah.
Did he
He
really?
won. Yeah, he won. He was the executive producer of this feature,
Alright.
this short short feature film, and he won an Oscar. You didn't know that?
No, that doesn't count. Yeah, that doesn't count.
Yes, it counts.
Okay,
What do you mean it
it
doesn't count?
count. But I was thinking of what was it? I was thinking
Listen,
what movie role
when
did
we
he have?
when we win a podcast award as whatever the Oscars
That won't
are,
count either.
It will count.
That won't count.
I'm
All right, so
going to count it on
so,
mine.
all right, count right.
You
All
don't
right.
have to count for you.
All
I'm
right,
counting it for me.
All right, I may. All right, so let's talk about it for a second. Let me give you some details. So it's a 100,000 square foot facility in Thousand Oaks, which
Shocker.
almost burnt down and had that tragedy out there. But so basically, it's a facility that operates. They'll have 5 indoor basketball courts, 5 volleyball courts, which are 2 huge indoor sport money makers in the tournament business. 2 beach volleyball courts, which makes sense. A turf field, and an esports training ground, which is brilliant. Batting cages, pitching mounds, and a jiu-jitsu school. Plus, I think they're going to also have some type of educational component to that.
Yeah, guess what? Here's my guess on what the educational component will be.
Right.
Hey, we're going to teach you how to build websites. We're going to tell you how to build, be a digital personality.
Yep.
So not only are you going to help you in terms of understanding how to manage your athletic career, but your own personal brand. Yeah, guaranteed.
Yeah.
That will be part of the educational part of it.
Anybody that's going to do these, I just always had this vision of how could you make, and you're right there. I would put in five audio and visual studios, right? So content creation, understand how that works, the distribution of it.
Kobe TV network,
Yeah.
or Kobe Digital Network.
Right. So what education do they
Right.
need is, broadcast and digital marketing, all of those things in the back end of the industry.
And he's doing these other vignette or features with on football. He did it for basketball first during the playoffs, where I can't even remember what it's called, but he had these features on ESPN where they were breaking down film for these other players' performances in these games. And now I guess he and Peyton Manning are working together on a football version of that as well through the NFL and on ESPN. So guess where those will move from the ESPN studios in LA, and guess where they'll end up?
Yeah.
Would be my guess back at the Mamba Academy.
100%. The world is changing. The business landscape is changing. Everything is within that space. How you get
Vertical integration, my friend.
Vertical integration. So those who are getting ahead of it, like Kobe and what they're doing here, the whole academy, you got to get my 10-year-old enrolled in it, and whether it's club or we talk about it all the time, this is no different than latching onto that. That is never going to go away. As long as you have parents, it's a pride thing, it's a human nature thing. They're checking the boxes so they can tell their friends and family. He's at the Mamba Academy. He's a all-star that cost me $20,000 a year to say that. And instead of sending the kid to the Harvard, Lake Harvard, or whatever the school is out in Beverly Hills, they're going to send them here.
Right.
They're going to send them here, and they're going to charge them $60.
And IMG,
Westlake Harvard, I think it's called.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I think so. I don't know.
It's wherever LeBron's kids are going.
That's right.
What will be interesting to see in her, I guess, sport, the play they make in terms of academia.
Yeah.
So as there, he's and we're going to talk about Tiger and a thoughtful guy who has a kind of this educational foundation, charitable foundation that he has out there as well, is how much these guys now go into play in terms of really getting, I guess, into the science and the academia side in terms of creating, we joked about earlier, but creating, I guess, the Stanfords of LA, all due respect to UCLA and USC.
And Florida State.
And Florida State, right. Well, we're not, Florida State is not in Los Angeles, so I was just trying to cover myself for the academic institutions that are in the greater Los Angeles area. So, I it's going to be interesting to see how these how these other traditional educational subjects get integrated into these like athletic institutions.
Yeah. So
and we have this whole privatization of these athletic academies that are still also providing an educational backdrop to that as well.
So if I could use this podcast
Yes,
in
sir.
10 years from now, I would not be surprised if you see these IMG academies start offering post-grad, then graduate school, then college degrees, where now you have these other academies popping up all over the country. So now you have these elite kids who are now playing, going through high school at these IMG type academies, the Mamba Academy and the whoever else academies out there, that now they start forming some of their own conferences.
Yeah.
You know, and look what happened at first when IMG came out and they wanted to play, you know, different. They wanted to play some of the best high school football teams in the country. The public schools weren't playing; they had to go to all the other private schools to play them. And now they started beating all the private schools, and now it's this whole ecosystem of high-level high school football and basketball that is on ESPN.
Right.
That's creating a whole different conference in and of itself that is as appealing to a lot of the, you know, to a lot of the fans out there that are following these recruits where they're going. In 10 years from now, the haves and have-nots in college athletics, because of the price structure, I would say there would be a window or door open for this model to become a college level model without having the interference with the NCAA. Thoughts?
Correct. I think, well, we'll see. I mean, I think you're right. I think you're going to have, what you're going to have is, in terms of, I think, truly kids who are going to end up in the NBA, in the NBA are going to, and they're not going to do it for $125,000, go play in the G League, but eventually, you're right, these Mamba academies and other things like that who have high school programming are going to create an infrastructure in terms of there's this other place other than the NCAA institutions to go and participate in a professional level of sports and actually be paid for it and rewarded to do it.
Right. So when you're not playing, you're managing events, you're broadcasting events, you're setting up and selling tickets. When you're off season, you're learning business.
Yes.
Hands-on, experiential learning. And oh, by the way, you're going to take some online courses from Stanford, from UCLA, from Florida State, and you're going to get your degree from those schools. I threw it in there.
Oh no! Here I'm going to
so
help you.
You're going to be in these locations where every school now offers degree online.
Right.
So you're going to be playing in Florida, but you're going to graduate from a degree from Oregon in sport management or from University of New Haven in sport management. See that plug?
Right. No.
So that is going to that's a real thing that has a strong possibility when people think right now there's 365 mega sports complexes throughout the United States. Mega sports complexes with not just 5 basketball. There's a facility down outside of Philadelphia that's called Spooky Nook. It has 35 basketball courts. It's 1 million square feet of space of field hockey, of basketball, has 2 full-size baseball fields indoors. Used to be the old Auntie Anne's. What's stopping them to create their own academies, right?
Yeah.
Just the bandwidth or someone to say, we're going to do this.
Yeah.
We're going to put some resources behind it, and we're going to bring in the right people, and we're going to offer these classes, and we're going to create these teams. And we're going to partner with UPenn, and we're going to partner with UConn, and we're going to partner with Penn State, and we're going to offer degrees online for these 18 to 21-year-olds to come play here and travel the world at a high level, and that's all they're going to do.
What about...
How's that rant?
How long before, to overlay that, how long before they say, you know what, we're not going to partner with these universities. We're going to steal their most talented people, and we'll create these other things. Hey, listen, you want to be the best Tommy John surgeon, reconstructive knees, reconstructive hips, concussion protocols now. We're going to cure CTE. We're going to develop think about developing engineers who are going to make football equipment that makes the game safe for young people to play against.
High performance institutes.
High performance, yes.
It's all
And
coming.
so it's still about engineering, but those guys are going to say, hey, you know what? These public institutions are getting a lot of money. People are paying a lot of money to attend those.
And government funding.
And government funding, and say, hey, you know what? Why don't you come to our place? Because we'll guarantee you our athletes who leave our academies are in for our medical care, because we provide them medical care for their entire lives. That's part of the deal in terms of when they come to our academy. So they're having their surgeries with us.
That's interesting.
They are doing their training with us. They are the culinary people who are cooking the food for them are with us. Oh, by the way, we happen to own our own farm where we grow our own food. Again, back to this sort of idea of vertical integration. I think you're going to find where particular places where you have some land I think those are things that are coming as well. Maybe not in the 10 years you talked about, but I think in the 15 to 20 beyond that, I bet somebody creates this whole, essentially colonies. They become their own cities and their own bubbles in terms of that's where they live because that's where it's safe.
You know, when you look at a school like IMG, which is I walk around there, and anybody walk around there would just wow, you're constantly wow. Mm-hmm. What a place. What an incredible place. They're there, you know, they're at that moment. They have the resources to do it. They have the infrastructure. They've been doing it for a very long time. They have very talented people that run those places. They have the right partners, the
right.
Under Armours, the Gatorades.
Right.
They have a high performance institute there.
Right.
I think the missing link for them right now is that educational piece for the kid. Instead of graduating and going on to a college, staying there and getting their 4-year degree there, and being able to play. But you need the accreditation. So let me take it another step. I do agree with you. I think the world moves very, very quickly. I don't think 20 years. I think right now, when you look at where higher education is,
right,
and the 2,000 schools that are out there,
right,
these mega universities now are not. UCF was 60,000.
Right.
They're mega
universities.
They're mega universities with now a couple 100,000 all online.
Right.
I don't think that you could ever replace the 4 years of having fun or being a student athlete. I just think how that is delivered and offered is massively going to change in the next 10 years. The online piece is suffocating traditional universities who haven't gotten into the game because they're pulling kids away.
Right.
They're pulling students away, especially international students who no longer can get into the United States like they used to.
Right.
And those are full paying tuition students. So, it's coming. It's going to be interesting to see. So,
absolutely.
Tiger Woods.
Let's
talk about Tiger. So the release came out 2 days ago or yesterday. Tiger Woods recently extended a multi-year endorsement deal with Monster Energy and is in talks with licensing deal to produce his own drink. Good idea or bad idea?
Oh, I think it's always a good idea because it's your personal, and again, the timing.
I'm sorry. Good idea for Tiger. It's great.
No doubt. For those guys, interesting.
Do you think Tiger is back to the mainstream where a 18-year-old kid or a 45-year-old man is going to go down and say, "Oh, Tiger drink, I'm going to grab that"? Do you think he needs to?
I think my answers are different for the two demographics you just talked about. For the 45-year-old, 40-plus-year-old audience, yes. I think Tiger's back. I think he needs, as time goes on, I think it will be good. I don't, when I look at my own kids and their friends, I don't know that there's a conversation about Tiger. And I think part of that too, I think in terms of that 18 and under is that audience still has a very strong relationship with their mother. And if you look at how Tiger treated his wife and his own parents
and his family,
and his family,
kids, yeah.
that doesn't necessarily hasn't resonated that well with women. And so I think there's some challenges there that still remain with that group. And I think one of the things that made Tiger a resurgence of Tiger, and what somebody told me was actually the #2 endorsement deal he had in his career behind Nike. Do you know what that is? EA Sports.
Oh,
is where he made money. So when he had the golf game and
right.
the height of gaming and golfing as a gaming entity. So I think when that returns, or there's some other thing related to that, I don't know that doing a beverage is going to get him that audience. So it's an interesting play. You know, the other thing I didn't know when you talked about body armor.
Mm-hmm.
And that Coke bought body armor.
Mm-hmm.
So now Coke has major interests with Monster and with body armor now.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sensing that either somewhere there's going to be a consolidation or a breakup of some. I know on the Monster part there was a lot of heartburn between Coke and Monster about Monster entering NASCAR. So I know there was from a corporate standpoint, in terms of there weren't people at Coke who were necessarily happy with that investment, but they don't own a controlling interest in that company, and so how that was going to play out. So it'll be interesting to see how that all shakes up from the corporate side. But it's a good thing for Tiger. I think anybody I think it's an opportunity for him, I think, to strengthen his brand, but it's not. There's no expansion, I don't think, in terms of that 18 and under. This is not the place where that's going to happen.
So my 2 cents on Tiger Woods is that he's not a likable guy. Never was a likable guy. A tremendous athlete when the window was open for him.
Mm-hmm.
A historic crash and burn. The karma of the world got him in his back, and he was not able to perform at his highest level.
Right.
If you're going to be an asshole and you can't perform,
I see we broke in the swearing group. That's okay.
If you're going to be an idiot and
you
can't perform, then there's no sympathy for you. I think when you have I think everybody's rooting for Tiger because he was such a dynamic personality when he was there.
Yeah.
How he crashed and burned is epic.
Yeah.
Because you didn't see it coming. Now, John Daly, if you said that John Daly, it's not believable, but, well, actually, it doesn't matter.
What?
If John Daly did what Tiger did on cheating on his wife with dozens of strippers,
right,
or in prostitutes and whatever else he did, right? No, strippers, because John Daly would have been the prostitutes. That John Daly, that's believable, right? That's you wouldn't think anything of it because that fits into his bad boy image, smoking cigarettes, the whole thing.
Right.
With Tiger, he tried to play a different role, right? Tiger tried to be a different type of guy, and so naturally, he. This is just my opinion.
No.
Right? This is my opinion.
Well, let's talk about this. This is good because I don't want to get into this.
This is my opinion on him.
Okay.
So when he crashed and burned, and then he came back, and he's just not a likable guy. You know, I think the fans loved him for what an unbelievable athlete and a golfer he is.
Right.
But all of that matters. Like what he went. Listen, there's so many professional athletes and just people in general that have affairs, so that's not a shocker.
Okay.
How he did it, how it went down, and then his lack of being able to come back because the universe basically said, "Nah, not happening, man." And his struggles to come back, and where he is right now.
But the universe, let's course correct here a little bit because I do. The universe karma didn't get him. His body. Let's be clear. His body failed him. He was a guy who lacked some moral character, no doubt.
100% disagree.
But his body. Listen,
he's a pro athlete.
His body did not break. His body. Look, his knee and his body broke down and failed him. That's why he couldn't win anymore.
Right.
That's why and now all of a sudden, this facade of this great golfer, it was off, and so there were now what has become apparent is his body and his moral character broke down. Now, are there other things? Are there other things in terms of? Look, I'm never going to be an admirer of, I think, who he was as a person or is as a person. I mean, he's not totally unlikable guy. There are a lot of things that are overwhelming in terms of the few good things he does do. But I think in terms of there is no more compelling person to watch play golf in my lifetime, and probably even the lifetime after me, than this guy. There's just what he was able to do and how he mastered the game in terms of, I still say, mentally is the toughest athlete I've ever seen in my lifetime. That's an incredible story. And for me, that all that other stuff can't take that away. Doesn't diminish what he was able to do. You know, I don't want to make the kind of comparison to OJ. But I guess I'm able to compartmentalize.
That's way over.
Oh yeah, that's way over. But I'm able to I'm able at least to look at him in those two separate lenses in terms of that stuff.
I don't. I look at it as all in one.
I know. I heard you say that earlier.
And that's pro sports for you, right?
Right.
You are exposed to that, like it or not. It is all part of the deal.
Right.
Right. It's not 1960s anymore.
Right.
Right. Where Babe Ruth is running around, or 1950s, where nothing is reported.
Well, in the 30s.
In the 30s, in the 40s. Okay,
thank you. You're welcome.
Right,
it's okay.
I'm a little younger than that. So just think
You're
of it.
right.
But it is, and I don't know if it's hard to it's really hard to root for somebody
mm-hmm.
who is a rotten human being,
mm-hmm.
right? And character, karma, all goes together. It's not like you can't become a good guy or a good woman.
Right.
Right? Your character is your character, right?
Okay.
And that helps you through your career in life and in sports, right?
Okay.
Karma is a bitch, and it bit Tiger.
Okay.
Right? The karma bit Tiger. If he did what he did, right, and he was able to come out of that,
right,
and perform at that same kind of level, I would say yes, it would have been forgotten. But that's not how human nature is.
Right.
He came out of it, and he just looked like a little whiny guy holding his back because no one could relate to it. He's not a linebacker in the NFL.
Right.
Right. He's not a center in hockey.
Right.
He's a golfer.
Right.
How much could you get injured? And the perception of people who play sports, athletes, understand that, yeah, it's very possible what he does. But the 99% of the schmucks and khakis drinking beers who go to those tournaments.
How dare you, sir? We're wearing tweed.
Right.
And our golf shorts.
Right.
Thank you.
Right. And I agree with you. He was the one guy that everybody would watch Tiger Woods
mm-hmm.
because he was a compelling story. But what was compelling about it is how he crashed and burned in such a legendary fashion. So, and you didn't, me personally, people in that world probably all knew what Tiger was doing.
So what was?
Yeah.
I think the only thing legendary about his collapse.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing unique about his collapse. I mean, he how many people do we not know about? I mean. The fact that he was able to keep it a secret from everybody, I think, is the thing that kind of just makes it colossal. Because there's nothing he didn't do that other people haven't done before. People have been caught driving under the influence. People have crashed cars. People have cheated on their wives. Right. They've cheated on with multiple people.
Right.
Look, the guy, we'll go back to he didn't kill anybody. He's never been accused of murder. He didn't. No one's come forward to say he abused any of the women he was with, or took advantage of them in a way. So I'm just saying. Look, I guess again, I'm going back to he's not someone I would my son or daughter to follow in terms of their personal character and the choices that he's made. He's made some very bad choices. On the flip side, what he does on the golf course and how he has competed, how he has taken care of his body and transformed his body. Part of that led to the demise and breakdown of his body as well, is what people have said as well, in terms of his the adding of weight and all those other things, and adding muscle and mass to his body didn't make him a better golfer. So, you know, I look, Tiger doesn't need your sympathy, doesn't need my sympathy for by any stretch of the imagination. I'm able to separate that in a way that I think most people should. Look, we're a forgiving group, and probably more people are going to forgive Tiger than you are. That's how, right?
No, I didn't give you my personal opinion was on the general consensus. I think what a lot of people think about that.
Okay.
And it has nothing to do with, you're gonna have people emailing me like, oh, come on. No, listen.
We'll see who gets more email, you or me, on this whole topic. That'll be very interesting to see. Chime in for us, folks, on this one.
The key to me, my whole point is about this is it has.
Did I miss it?
Yeah, you did. I think you did miss it. I think you did miss it.
Okay.
Hold on here. What happened on this thing? I'm sorry.
No problem.
He just wasn't a likable. If he was a likable guy in general,
right?
He just wasn't a likable guy. So my point is, whether I liked him or not, or whether you liked him or not, or anybody liked him or not, it's hard to transition from doing what he's done,
right?
What he got caught doing, living the life of a bachelor with a wife and kids at home again.
Correct.
A lot of
not
people,
unique.
It is not unique.
Right.
Right. But then coupled with the fact that he's not a likable guy and not being able to come back and perform what he did, obviously psychological, whatever happened with him, and then physical, and then it took him years to come back to be relevant again. Mm-hmm. People forgot about him. And a lot of people were like, you know what? Good. That's human nature. Mm-hmm. You're going to knock the guy on top down, whether you love him or not, but you're respecting him as a golfer and as a pro athlete.
Right.
I don't think he will ever, unless he comes out and he just blows it away the next couple of years, I don't think anything he endorses. I think what Monster is doing right now is desperation for their brand, because he is in my opinion, a C-level, B- level rated pro athlete right now. Okay. I think his brand is so completely tarnished. He has to come and knock it way the hell out of the park for a couple of years consistently to be back up there where people have actually forgot about, because everybody loves winners.
Right.
And you love to see winners fail. It's human nature. It's not, I'm just saying it's human nature. If all of those things, granted, if he got caught, great, and he's still knocking it out of the park, we're not having this conversation anymore. Right? He's still all over getting his big fat check from EA Sports. Right? All of that's forgotten. Right. So that's my point. Karma follows you. Character matters in whatever you do in life. And sometimes, it bites you.
So if you're the
I don't know why I'm holding this up anymore. It went off.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you're the CEO of Monster Energy, and your marketing guys come to you and say, hey, we got this chance to endorse Tiger, or have Tiger endorse create a whole product for him, around him, with it being the signature brand, you're telling your guys to go pound sand.
Depending on what the cost is.
Okay. So where's your threshold in terms of cost? Because
who's the consumer?
Because I think
who's the consumer that's going to go out and say, I need to get I don't know exactly who the demo for Monster. I would assume it's 19 through 25-year-old males.
Well, is that who you think the consumer is for?
Monster.
Okay, well, let's just say, say energy drinks in general.
Right.
I think that's who's consuming it. I'm not convinced that's who's necessarily buying it. And I would say, I think still, in terms for most people, in terms of who's in the store buying the stuff, it's still women who are in the store buying the product.
Yeah, but Monster is primarily a one-off. You're going to buy an energy drink for the most part.
It's a C-store.
It's a grab and go product. But who's truckers overnight? Guys working at UPS overnight.
I think I think in terms of who's using those products,
Right.
there is a total. For me, it's a total disconnect.
Yeah.
Unless you think, and the other part of it, I think, in terms of which is I'm convinced about, as you talked about, is at the end of the day, it's really about how you're going to get in these stores, how you're going to get distribution. And am I going to get anything new in terms of distribution? Am I introducing anybody new to the category that's not consuming it now? And by having him in there and having a specific product, does it do that? I think my answer is, guys, this feels off to me. It's not who we are.
Yeah.
It's not who we are. It's separate from where we're from. I get you. I get what I don't necessarily buy your B minus C plus celebrity level, but I do buy the fact that in terms of who's buying my stuff potentially today or in the future.
So is he an A level?
I don't see him. No. I agree. I agree in terms of.
So what do you think about
his
this?
B. I just.
So if
I don't think it's a great idea.
So if we're sitting in a marketing meeting, right, and you and I are sitting there and
Mm-hmm.
we're pitching ideas and we're thinking about who we're in charge of Monster, and we have an opportunity for the same cost to get Tiger Woods or Ninja. Who do we get? Who do you pick?
Tiger Woods or Ninja?
Ninja. You gotta know who Ninja is.
I don't know who Ninja is.
Ninja is the #1 Fortnite player in the world.
Oh, easy. I'm all over Ninja.
Right.
No, without a doubt.
Right.
And you know what? Ninja's going to cost me less, I believe it too. Well, there's no doubt, and I don't have to worry about Ninja embarrassing me or embarrassing my brand in any way, shape, or form, or having a career collapse because it's all manufactured in terms of what's there.
Yeah. Plus, he's a single young guy who's hip, and I think Ninja will probably cost 100 times more than Tiger Woods would cost, just because he has the exposure and he has a much more valuable demographic. I think Tiger Woods' demographic is old guys like us, and I think it's if it is younger, I think it's a very urban younger demographic.
Mm-hmm.
But is that demographic buying Monster Energy
No.
drink? So
I don't think they're in the category.
So who's buying Monster Energy drink? It's
Right.
18, 19, 20-year-old kids sitting in front of a computer playing Fortnite for 13 hours, or a college kid sitting there. Let me grab an energy drink. Right. It's not a female.
Right.
Right.
Correct.
Or very few. So Ninja. So that ultimately, the really long conversation. That's ultimately my point for this whole thing. So.
Yeah. No. I think even. Again, I think when you look at that category, I think Red Bull did it the right way. They didn't put necessarily people or athletes in front. They created their own properties and manufactured their own events and created their own things that they owned and that they control.
Right.
And so whether it's at the end of the day, Ninja, you're not going to own Ninja. You're not going to own Tiger. And so I would say I'm better off creating my own fictional person and creating a whole storyline around him, and I'll spend a lot less money doing that than I will go chasing these other people.
Well, I think there's a lot of brands that are trying to do that right now. They're trying to follow the same blueprint as a Red Bull, and I don't know if they ever could do. Red Bull did it organically because they weren't going to pay for those prices. They figure, and just like a lot of brands now, they realize that if we're going to get into the game and we're going to spend X amount of dollars, then I want to own the content and I want to own the property.
Right.
Right. So I think that's why this thing just doesn't feel right to me with Monster and Tiger Woods. It just doesn't. It feels like it's forced. It's not authentic. It doesn't to me. It doesn't fit. I don't know. Maybe it does, but I don't know. Maybe I'm
I think they've been successful in one part. They got you and I talking about it.
Yeah.
And we're probably not the only ones talking about it.
No.
But from that perspective.
So that picture right there looks pretty cool, though. I could see that. The branding and the bottling, that looks pretty cool. But unless could you put vodka in Monster Energy drink? Because Red Bull really became Red Bull is perfect because if you could create an energy drink that mixes well with with a booze,
right,
or now with an edible or with marijuana, that's it's not taboo. That's where the world is going,
different
right?
Story, yeah.
Right. So I think that's what you have to think about. All right, man. We've been on here for about an hour and 15 minutes. We're way over time.
Wow.
Yeah, I know it. And I think we have
Time rolls.
we have one thing that's actually has a little bit of juice left in it.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
We killed it all.
So yeah, so we've killed it all. So another good one.
Hey, thanks, Rob.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me here again. It's been awesome.
Sports Biz Podcast presented by Game Plan U.
Game Plan U.
Keep the fires burning and see you next week.
Thanks.
Bye, my man.
Beautiful.
That's it.
It's a wrap.
That is a wrap. Goodbye.
Do Chris's followers come